Okay, I think a good number of you have started to join. So welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on what's new in digital workplace. This is version 23.304. Today joining me is Deepak Rudra, our principal product manager, and Carl Anders Volk, our lead product manager. They're going to go through a lot of exciting stuff today. So just a couple of reminders before we get started. This is a roadmap session, so we do have a legal notice just to remind you. While you're reading this, for those that have not used Zoom before, there is an opportunity to ask us questions. You'll find that at the bottom with the Q&A section. So during the presentation and the demos, if you do have any questions, please put them there. We have allocated significant time for lots of questions. We are aware that normally we need more than an hour, so we have put aside at least 90 minutes, but we will spend a lot of time answering your questions. So I'm now going to hand over to Kaf, who's going to get us started. You will remain muted until we get to the end with the live Q&A. Over to you, Kaf.
Thank you, Samantha. Good to be back, and very good to be back together with Deepak. I think both of us have been having our own webinars, but it's always more comfortable to be together as product managers. Deepak and I work very tightly together and drive the development of digital workplace and Helix GPT use cases for the employees. So we'll talk about what's new. We have about 15 new features in this release, and Deepak and I will do a little bit of demo each. We'll share this session, and then you can ask questions, and we'll try to answer as much as we can on the fly. If we look at what we have done, the last two major releases, 22X and 23X. We are at the last one of the 23.3 releases now. If you look here, it's quite many new features. So if you have not upgraded to 22 yet and is still on 21, or if you're even on a 20.0, you have many new features available to you that you can adopt. This is about 150 new features. And if you have missed any of the other webinars, you can go to the communities here, and you can look at our What's New webinars that we are delivering for every new release. You can see it's not just DWP here, but if you are a Helix customer, you get features in all the different products. What you also can see here is that we have a pretty good frequency now. This year we have tried to get one out every quarter, and we're getting there now. So next release after this one is going to be 25.1. It's going to be called 25.1, and it's scheduled for January already. So our developers have already finished this one. We haven't really released it GA yet. It's likely to happen this week. I was about to say tomorrow, let's see. But before the end of the month is the plan at least, but hopefully tomorrow. Okay, so let's jump in. And what we have decided is to add generative AI to DWP, and we have named it Employee Navigator. So everything that you do, which is driven by the generative AI engine behind the scene, the one we call Helix GPT, it's in the platform, but we use it to help employees in their daily work to become more productive and to become more effective. The use cases, I'm not going to go through what it is used for and what you can do too much today. There was a webinar a couple of weeks back that we called Gen AI to improve employee self-service capabilities on digital workplace. There, I was sharing a few use cases and the value of it. And because Deepak could not join or somebody else could not join because of too much work, I actually asked two of my digital buddies to join me. I asked Gen AI to comment on the different features. So there were two podcasters that were completely driven by Gen AI. I didn't give them a script. They were commenting by themselves. Take a look at that. It's pretty fun. And I think that is also telling a bit about what I think of the future here. When you get used to these Gen AI tools, you will have a kind of fleet of tools or agents that you use in your daily job. And I felt very empowered because I was a little bit disappointed when my colleagues couldn't join me to discuss these things. But because I could use Gen AI as a tool, I could actually do it pretty well. And I got pretty good comments from these guys on the side. So take a look at that one if you're interested. It's talking about what you can use Employee Navigator for. So until now, we have had the Gen AI capability in the search bar, and you have been able to look up things in the knowledge base through this. And now we have added a new side panel. Those of you who have been using Helix Virtual Agent will initially not see much difference. It's like the side panel we have for Helix Virtual Agent. But this is using new technology, and it will give us a lot of new capabilities moving forward when we extend the use cases for Employee Navigator. So you have this little icon up here where you can turn it on and off. It's always there, regardless of which page you're on. While if you use this chat bar and have Helix GPT behind that one, you can have different skills behind the scene. We call them skills, which is the kind of thing deciding what you can do. So if you need a human resource bot, the human resource team can tailor it and they can publish it on their page, and the IT guys can tailor it for them and they can publish it on their page. This one is global. So this one you can ask anything. From here you can of course reach the other ones as well, but it's there all the time. So that is that side panel, which is the first thing in Employee Navigator. And we call that panel and the icon, the Employee Navigator icon and the Employee Navigator panel. We have also worked, the first use cases were a little bit just get the answer to you. If you ask a question, you get an answer. But what if there was no knowledge? There was no way to answer. We just told you there is no answer. Now we have added what we call a fallback option prompt in the system. So you can tailor what happens when there is no knowledge article or it doesn't find anything which is relevant. And if you go and ask first and you get this, you can also decide what you offer to the end user. In this case, we have added two buttons. One is raise a service request and the other one is chat with a live agent. So this is not leaving the user without help. That's kind of the whole purpose. You want to use Employee Navigator so that users can get help whatever happens. Likely through knowledge articles first, but if that doesn't work, you can always raise a request or you can chat with the live agent. We have also added the thumbs up, thumbs down capabilities. So when you click on the thumbs down, you can also enter some improvement suggestions, and this is captured in records in the database. Right now in this release, we have the front end ready, and data is captured. And in the next release, we'll also have a Helix dashboard available so you can report on it in a nice and easy way. It's stored together with other telemetry data about what you have asked, which knowledge articles are mostly used, did you hand over to live chat, and all those statistics you need to run a good chat experience and improve it over time. The data we collect for telemetry and for this feedback, we also are working on using to train the model in the future, so it becomes better and better the more feedback you give. That's the idea of this. In previous release, you could ask, show my requests or show my approvals, and we have now added show my to-dos or show to-dos. And the nice thing is that before we got it like in an unformatted text blurb, but now there is a table so you can easily see what is out there. This is the same information you get in DWP if you go to the My Activity page, but it's sometimes more convenient to type it in the chat bar and get it back in this format. So as with the knowledge, you have the links so you can click and see the details, and that opens up the requests in DWP or to-dos or approvals. We have also fine-tuned the mobile experience. It was a little bit rough before. It is now much better and fits nicely and looks nicely on the mobile. So of course you can chat when you are on the go. And of course, when you do the show my to-dos, you can see them. You see the table doesn't fit here. So on the mobile, you can scroll left and right with your fingers. And if it's a big screen, you will see the whole thing, of course. So that is very quickly the things we have done for the Employee Navigator and the generative AI capabilities in this release. We are continuing to invest a lot in Helix GPT and in Employee Navigator, but this was what we managed to get into patch 4. I'll give you a quick demo so you can see how it looks in real life as well. So this is a demo environment, and what you see here is a new look and feel that we offer. It is a studio page, and as you can see, there is this chat bar. It is no longer keyword search, but it is Helix GPT behind the scene. And down here you have the possibility to flip to the IT page or to the human resources and so on. So you have the possibility to build out small microsites. Deepak will talk a little bit more about it later on, but if you click here, you will get the last things you have been typing, and as soon as you have been asking, and as soon as you start typing here, you can see the list is getting shorter. So if I type show, it's going to list all the things that starts with show. So if I take show open requests, for example, it will go back and it will retrieve the requests from the database in Helix GPT. And now you see the table formatting here. It's easy to read and easy to follow. And if you want to see the details, you can click on one of the links down here. And then you end up in this familiar screen that you have been using for quite some time already in DWP. So if you can show to those. So to-dos are actions you have been assigned from your manager, your hiring manager, or from the HR department, whatever. So this could be someone which is pretty new hire and they want to survey your hiring experience. So again, you can click on it and it opens up the details of the to-do. Show approvals, same thing there. So this is kind of chatting with DWP objects. You can ask about them and you can get them displayed on the screen. What can you do? I have a little welcome message like this also that you can use. So it's ask any question, which is when you look up things in the knowledge base, and then we have these other things that we have been testing a little bit. But I can ask things like how to configure how to log in. And now it will go out and it will use semantic search or vector-based search if you want. And it will retrieve some knowledge and it will use the large language model to generate the answer for you. You don't get this long list of different knowledge articles. You get the answers. And you can see it has nicely formatted the output here as well. And if you want to read a full knowledge article, you have it handy if you want to see it. And then you also get similar articles out here. So that is very much the full screen one. If you go back to here, you see here is the employee navigator icon. And if you click on it, you will see the side panel coming out and in. And it doesn't really matter where you are in DWP. It will still be there. And if we take if we take the old catalog page, it's still here. So it's always available for you to work with. And here is different versions of this. If we look here, it is no difference, I would say. You can ask other questions. How to fix paper jam is another knowledge article I know is out there. And you see it is pretty nicely formatting output here, so it's easy to read. If I ask something that it doesn't know about, how to dance, for example, it doesn't know anything. I don't have any knowledge article about that. It will tell me that you can rephrase the question, maybe a little bit different if it is not what you look for or more specific. That's up to you what you put here. And then you have two buttons, talk to a live agent or raise a service request. So if you click on any of these buttons, you will be getting the help through other ways. So if I raise a service request, it will ask a question about what I need help with. What do you need help with? And I will, what did I ask? I asked about, I need help with paper jam on HP printers. I don't really bother about Xerox printers because that's not what I have. Okay, so then I can submit the request, hopefully. Yes. And once it is submitted, I'll get the request number and I can go and open that up. And then I get to this familiar page, as you can see. So that's essentially what I wanted to share with you. Any questions on that? I see that let's try that again. How fast it is depends a little bit on the system. This is a system that is under development. It's not the GA version, and it's running on a server in our development lab. So it's not a real system, but you can see if I do what should we do? How to reset browser cache in Chrome. It's taking a few seconds. I'm still working on, but it's not that slow. I think it's pretty good. And if we take how to reset browser cache, you can see we have implemented what is called streaming. So as soon as the large language model starts to output data, we show it on the screen. In the first release, we waited until the end, and then you had to wait maybe 40, 50 seconds, and that felt like crazily long time. So now when you have the streaming there instead, it is giving you a feeling of that something happens all the time, so it doesn't feel like waiting as long as it did in the beginning. So language support is we build everything in English. I think we can answer in written later on, but we build everything in English, and we then use the large language model is one part of it, and one part is what our product support. So as you know, Digital Workplace is supporting around 30 plus languages. So if you in the user profile configure your language, or you set the language in your browser, you can, this list can be it's just a few languages here, but if you set the language, Helix GPT will know what you have set, and the large language model will attempt to use that language as much as it can. How well it is supporting that language, we have seen a little bit difference between Spanish is pretty good. The smaller languages like Swedish, which I am interested in, of course, and maybe Danish, a little bit less good at that. Unfortunately, OpenAI doesn't really say how many languages and how well they support the different languages, but We see pretty good results with different languages. I mean, you have tested, I guess, in ChatGPT. It's the same model behind the scene. So it is using that capability of the large language model. And I think that is as far as I can say right now. What we have seen, you need to remember another thing. If your knowledge articles are in English and you ask in a different language, it will still try to translate the content of the knowledge article into the language you want it to talk. And what we have seen is if you have, let's say you are in Denmark and you have Danish as your language and you have all your knowledge articles in Danish, it works, I would say, pretty well. Or in Swedish and you have knowledge articles in Swedish, it works pretty well. If you have all your knowledge articles in English and you try different languages, it still works well because the large language model is translating, but not as reliable as if you have the knowledge articles in the same language. So to be as good as possible, we still recommend that you translate your knowledge articles to the languages that you're going to use, because that works best. Long answer to a quick question. Hopefully you got the answer. Okay, is the multi-tenant mode. Yeah, I mean in DWP you can have multiple tenants, and then you will get different Helix GPT instances that you configure individually for each tenant. So in that sense, yes. Maybe we need to talk a little bit more about the use cases that you want to do across tenants. If you talk about anything else than just having different tenants in DWP, there could be other aspects of multi-tenancy. We are using IBM Watson to create questions for the ticket creation using virtual agent. Will IBM Watson no more available from? Oh, it is still available. Watson is still available, and if you have it in place, don't worry, will not block you from using it. We recommend that you migrate to Helix GPT. And the main reason is the value you get and the benefits you get. Those of you who are familiar with using Watson knows that you have to tell it what intents to recognize, and the intents is like the catalog items, for example. And that is pretty easy because you can use the catalog and you can create Watson configurations for the different catalog items. However, if you wanted to recognize different words or different sentences for that catalog item, you have to list them. So under each intent, you need to list utterances, 5, 10, 20, depending on how many you wanted to recognize. Here we have a pre-trained large language model that knows essentially everything. It doesn't really matter how I ask the question, as long as the large language model understands the intent, and that is amazing how good it is on that. So you don't really need to train Helix GPT the same way you have to train Watson to recognize the intents. That is one part. The other part is that you have to create a dialogue in Watson. That is, what should it ask? How should it behave? What happens if I try to digress? And a lot of other things to really make it feel like you're talking to someone. That is a manual coding effort, I would say. We have a wizard that can generate a dialogue, but most customers play with that and want it to be a little bit different than out of the box. So you invest in the dialogue. Here again, Helix GPT uses the large language model knowledge. So we have the wizard, we can train it on the catalog items in DWP, and it generates prompts, system prompts or platform prompts, whatever you want to call them, the ones giving instructions to the large language model. And in most cases, that is enough. You don't really need to train Helix GPT on either recognizing different sentences for the catalog items, and you don't really need to train it on the dialogue. It can do that by itself because the large language model is so intelligent and capable behind the scene. We have today, actually, I got a question from one customer where I think we have to help the large language model a little bit. All their knowledge articles are prefixed. The name of the knowledge articles are prefixed with a 3-character code. So for Germany, they have DJU, Deutschland. And when you ask the large language model, it doesn't really know what the EU means. It doesn't understand that. So there we have to help it a little bit, but otherwise it seems to be very flexible and very capable. That's my experience so far. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so I'm impressed still every day when I use this thing. Okay, I think I'll hand over to Deepak now. We have done half an hour already, so I'll let you take it, and we'll respond to the questions in writing if we need to. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gav. That was a great session and good questions. Thank you, everyone. And I'll start sharing my screen. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we're back on the slides.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So we'll talk about the other features other than what CAF has already shown about the employee navigator. What all other features are coming up as part of our next release or the current, the subsequent release that we have, 23.304. We are providing a new converged notification engine, which is on Innovation Suite. And I have actually done a 90-minute webinar on this few weeks back. If you were not part of it, I highly recommend that you actually go and take a look at it. I covered all the customization aspects, all the aspects of configuration. How do you actually migrate from your old notification engine to new notification engine? So it's pretty important that you take a look at that webinar. Now, the crux of it is really that we will have a new notification engine from Digital Workplace in Innovation Suite, which is already being used by business workflows. And you will start seeing that some other applications will also start consuming that notification engine. What all use cases are we covering here? Our idea is that we will do a multi-phased approach where we'll migrate all use cases from DWP, all notification templates into the new notification engine. But in this release that's upcoming, you'll start seeing that you have service requests, you have all the notification templates from service request, you have all the notifications from approvals, all the notifications related to collaborations are part of that that offering that we are giving in this release. All the notifications are their rules, the process behind that, everything is available to you, can be customized, and everything is inside the Innovation Suite platform. You will also be able to approve and reject DWP catalog, native catalog services or request via email. So approving, rejecting, putting it on hold, or adding a comment, all of that can be easily done. Your end users can also now respond to a notification. So as you can see on the screen, you have approver who can approve, reject, and put on hold, and can also comment on it through the email itself. Similarly, you have post a comment button will be available to you. for responding back to it, and then it will be processed through rule-based engine and updated in the work log. Collaborators, approvers, as I said, and requested by and requested for, all of those people will be able to respond back to those emails. If the email is forwarded to somebody who's not entitled or not part of that request, the updates will be rejected in order to maintain the security. And then you can easily closely align with your brandings. So the brandings that you do in digital workplace will be moved over automatically to the new notification engine. And if you choose not to use the same branding, you can override the templates by replacing the variables that we are actually giving as part of the notification engine. When I said customization, I highly recommend go and take a look at that recording from the webinar. It gives you all the features of customization that you can bring in data from different different schemas into your notification. A classic example that I gave in that webinar was, in a survey email, can I actually have resolution details from the incident? And I was able to show you that. So it's very robust. A lot of functionalities are covered. We have thought through it a lot, and there are certainly no limitations that you will be able to hit with this. From the localization perspective, I've also covered a lot of details about how to localize, and you can easily support all the locales that you have for digital workplace. All right. There is a link at the bottom for Q&A, slides, recording, and then the education material. And it will also be shared with you when the webinar is over as part of the resources. So I highly encourage that you look at it. The phase two, really, the phase two of that is going to be in the subsequent release, where we are going to migrate the other notifications. For example, external portal user registration notifications, appointments, right? Service health, things like that, really, right? Those notifications will be part of the subsequent release. But I think we feel that what we have done in 23.304 covers like 90% of your use cases. Okay. And you can easily switch back and forth between both the notification engine for trying out, really. So it's not that you just give up on one notification engine completely in order to migrate to other. So in your dev or non-production environment, you can switch back and forth with a toggle of a button and can test it out. So we have made it pretty easy. Okay. The next enhancement we have is around collaboration. Collaboration, those of you who do not know about collaboration or have not enabled this functionality, it's like, if you are either on PTO or your colleague is also impacted by something, you would like them to really be collaborator in that request, so that you avoid having duplicate requests and don't overburden your service desk, really, right? A classic example that I give is, you have a shared resource on a floor that you as a team are working, and that's impacted, or a common product application that all of you are using as team, and that's impacted. All of you don't have to really create a request for IT to fix that yourself. You can actually do it. One person take the lead and do it, and add all other as collaborators, really, and can be informed. And now with new notification engine, you all can respond to emails, and it will be updated in the work log. Also, they will have access to by the design of collaboration, they always have access to the request. What is this feature in this release extra than what we already have? Now you can actually delegate collaboration to somebody. What does that mean? Let's assume you are a manager and you are going on a PTO, but the work should not stop if you're going on a PTO, correct? So what you can do, because you feel that there could be more people, those who are interested in looking into it, and then because you don't know who those people will be, you eventually know as they come up in the future, really, or the need arises for them to be added in the future. So what you do, you really put your delegate as what you do in your out of offices. You provide a delegate. So let's assume I'm going out of office. I usually put CAF as my delegate because we have equal authorities and CAF can take it over. Same is what CAF does. He goes out of office and he puts me as a delegate. So you go out of office, or you are on some sort of maternity or paternity leave, you put somebody else as a delegate and give them power to add somebody else also as a collaborator. So the delegates will be able to manage the collaborators, can add people. Now, this will have a governance over who you allocate as the person who can add other collaborators, as well as you are not blocked people are not blocked by you going on a PTO or with your non-availability. Now, this comes with some responsibility that you cannot do it on all catalog items. So we have made this feature available per catalog, per service basis. So you can actually go into each catalog and then can basically edit it and select, I want to enable delegation on this or not really. So you can go very granular. For example, you do not want password reset, collaborators to be there on the password reset request, but you want if an application is impacted. So you can just do it per catalog basis, this setting, and you'll see something like this, and I'll show you in the demo as we move forward. Now, this is also one of the main concerns, that if you have some sort of sub-catalog administration permission, in digital workplace catalog, you will see the entire subcatalog. This was majorly a problem for MSPs and where you have sub-catalog administration enabled in your organization, that those people will act like admins and will have access to entire service offering when they actually go to digital workplace. So in DWP catalog, yes, you are restricting the visibility of the catalogs, but if they go to DWP end user portal, they will be able to see all the catalog services inside that DWP system, which some customers felt was like a breach and should not happen really. So what we have done, we have introduced a feature that it's an opt-in feature. You can just change that opt-in setting and it will start enforcing the virtual marketplace entitlements for sub-catalog admins also. Again, thing to remember is catalog admins will not be impacted by this. They will have unrestricted access because that's the need of the role. But internal suppliers, sub-catalog admins, asset managers, all of those granular permissions inside DWP catalog will then start honoring the virtual marketplace entitlements and then will control what they can actually see on DWP end user portal. This is another feature which was highly asked by a lot of customers, was around data lookup using APIs or external systems really, which are not in BMC system really, right? You have Workday application, you have your Active Directory, several other places, and you would like to really look up the data and show in the questionnaire somewhere for user to select. You want this to be dynamic in nature, that based on your one answer, the second should be populated. And you also wanted that if there is no data available, then don't show me anything really in that. Earlier, you used to really do a lot of different things to work around this. Some of you, those who are aware, you used to create external record definitions in Innovation Suite, and for every integration, you had to create one external record definition. Now that's not the case anymore. So with this release, you will have an external lookup that you can do into any third-party system outside of BMC product suite through APIs, as long as you have a connector or you have a REST API to communicate with that, and can populate the questions based on responses. Or if you do not want it based on a response, you can just say on load of the form, just show me everything really. So it's sky is the really limit, and we do not define the syntax in which you're going to send it. So you're going to create a process, and then you're going to pass all the questions that you want to really from here to that process. And then in the process that you create in Innovation Suite, you will be able to communicate back and forth and then pass us the results back into the questionnaire. So I hope I was able to make sense until now. So as you can see here, you will have a process name that you can map. Then you can pass on your questions and their stored values, and then pass it on to the process that you have in Innovation Suite. It can be an independent process and can get the results back into the questionnaire. All right. Um, Another thing to remember is, one, because you have now reliance on a process which is not part of that native DWP catalog service, correct? Because you're calling a like a process which is in Innovation Suite. So now with import export utility, the dependent workflow, which is calling the third party system, which is not part of that, workflow, will also be called or will also be imported automatically, right? So you don't have to really worry about, migrating it separately and then importing it through Innovation Suite. No, our import export utility is going to take care of that. So your migration from dev to prod becomes pretty easy. Those of you, and many of you are really actually have spoken to me about SRM to DWP catalog migration strategies. And in previous release, we provided SRD to DWP catalog, native catalog service migration utility. One of the biggest feedback that I got from all of you was the SR type fields is a must have for all of you. Some of you were really using it for reporting purposes. Some of the customers were using it for approvals. Some of the customers were using it for SLM integration, which we don't have at this moment, but we are working on it in the future releases for SLM integration, just for your information. So we have introduced um, a feature parity and something similar to that, which will be called as flex fields. We have introduced 20 such flex fields in DWP catalog request. So what does that mean? When you open service request record definition, here you can see you will have 11, you will have 20 flex fields available. That will be feature parity to your SR type fields. 12 fields are character type fields, 2 are date fields, 2 integer, 2 date time, and 2 time fields. So we have tried to make like a good balance of how much is required really and how much should be added, and we have provided support for that. Now, when you create your processes, when you really submit a request, you can use part of the question answers or some lookup value from some other form like region, site, department, cost, anything really. You can map it to these fields and you can use it for further processing, which could be approvals, for example. One feedback I keep hearing from a lot of customers is if the approval cost is more than $100, then I need to have VP approve it, right? So your approval direction changes. And you were able to do that with SRM, but not with DWP catalog, correct? You also can report against it. So not to say you all know the use of these fields, but I'll tell you how to use it with Digital Workplace Catalog. Okay. There are a couple of ways in which you can use it, and I'll show you those. Then we have extension of SRD migration utility. You have already seen demos of like full 90-minute demo that I have done in past for the SRD migration utility. Now, in this release, embedded PDTs was one of the pain point for a lot of customers that you were not able to migrate embedded PDTs. We were not supporting that, and hence you all were not able to utilize this migration utility fully. So if you have not started using it, I highly recommend that you take a look at the recording, and it's at the bottom and in the resource slide that Sam will share with you all. But with this, nothing changes really for your consumption. It's same UI, same functionality behind the scene. We just introduce support for embedded PDT migration. So if we are supporting up to 6 embedded PDTs in a chain that we can migrate 6 embedded PDTs into individual processes in the DWP catalog without even you knowing it. We will just say in the pre-checker supported, move with caution, and we will say that there are embedded PDTs. You just got to make sure that it's correct, and then you enable your workflow, and that's it really. So it won't fail. It would just say yes, it's supported, and it will automatically migrate all the PDTs up to level 6 in a chain into DWP catalog service. And each PDT, embedded PDT, will be a process in itself in DWP. And let's assume if a process is used by multiple SRDs, it's repeatedly used by, repeatedly used by other SRDs, we are not going to override that. So if systems see that, okay, it's the same PDT with same IDs, GUIDs and IDs, we are not going to overwrite it. We're going to just update it if there are updates needed through the checksum. If not, we'll just skip it and consider that it's already there. So we are not going to crowd your system with repeated processes if you are reusing the same PDT multiple times. All right. I will show you what it looks like, and essentially for your admins, it's no change really. The utility works the same way. All you got to do is just download the new utility if you're already using it and install it, and it's automatically going to update the package with this functionality. There is one feature setting that you may have to enable, and I'll talk about that once we do the demo. Last but not the least, you have sample studio pages that we shipped which are available for you to download, inspire yourself for multiple LOBs. We have new brand themes and icons there. Also for the IT content pack, which is available for customers to download and install on their system. They can download IT content pack, and then these icons, images, and this color theme will be part of it. So you can actually experience the new layouts and all the new functionalities that we have introduced in this, along with the new icons, imagery, and then the color theme. Okay, so I'll stop here. The next thing that we're going to do is the demo of everything that I have just spoken. So let's get back to the demo part. So first thing that I'm going to show you is the collaborators feature. I'm not going into notification engine because we have already done an extensive in detail demo about that. But if you have any questions, you can follow up with me, or follow up with Sam if you want, and we'll be happy to answer. But we have covered all of that really. So let's assume there is a fix or repair. You're trying to fixing something, and then you want your colleagues to be really part of it, right? So right now, if you request something, you just see collaborators, right? But I know that I'm going to be out of office in next few days because Thanksgiving is coming up, and I need to delegate it to somebody else, possibly in this case to Carl Anders, really. Okay. So as an admin, what I can do, I know that fix and repair is one of those catalog offerings which definitely is needed across by different people, and then requester should be able to delegate and go away on PTO. So fix and repair, I open that, and then I have the collaboration setting, and I can just go and allow collaborator delegation in this. Simple, pretty simple. I don't have to really do anything else. It's just enabled. It's done really. So I go back and let me quickly refresh. Apologies for that. It's taking a little time. It shouldn't take that long. Okay, so fix or repair, and then I can now request it, and I see a new setting called collaborator delegation. Okay, so let's assume I'm going on PTO, and I may probably have like a request already submitted, so that I don't have to type really all of this. I can show you that. Yeah. So let's request this again. So we as a team, right? We all use a product, like a Polycom conference product in conference room XYZ, and it's not working. So what I do, I have for simplicity, I have some colleagues that are impacted. So let's assume me and another colleague are in the room, and then we are impacted by that. So I'm gonna add Alan, and I'm gonna make Paul as the collaborator delegate, really, because I'm going out of office. But Alan and I know that this thing is not working. But I say, Paul, take care of this. You need to work with IT. I'm going out of office tomorrow. This may not be fixed today itself, right? So then I just submit it. So the expectation is now Alan has it, and then Paul, who is my delegate, should be able to handle it in my absence, right? And let's see. Let's log in as Paul. All right, let's go to IT Central. Yeah, I see you see shared by Liam, which is me in this case, and then Paul is the collaborator delegate. But Paul cannot further delegate to anybody. Paul can add more collaborators, okay, so that they can just collaborate. But Paul is the one who's in charge right now, okay. So I'm gonna add Bob in this case to just show you that what are the powers of a delegate, right? So I include Bob into this, and then I'm done. So, right, Bob is already there. Now let's log in as Bob, really, and see available or the service is available. Okay, Bob doesn't need to know what is role of Paul in this case. All Bob needs to do is need to really work or collaborate on that and help in fixing the problem or respond to service desk if needed, right? So in this case, the sharing has happened multiple times. So the shared by is gone because for one person it's shared by Liam, for other person it could be shared by somebody else. It doesn't really matter. So it now becomes a shared request. Okay. And then this person can just see all the collaborators for transparency. So he or she does not know that Paul was the one who was the delegate, doesn't need to even know. So it's none of that person's concern really, but need to know who's getting the information when I'm updating this. So that's why for transparency, this person knows all of these people are collaborators on this particular service. All right. Now, as an administrator, what happens really behind the scene? In your reports or as a agent will also have that visibility. So I just raised a request 2 minutes back, fix or repair. Agents will start seeing that there were two collaborators and there was one delegate. So that information will also be available on the request basis on each request. All right. So this is all about the collaborator delegation feature. If you have any questions, please put it on chat. But the prerequisite is you have to enable collaboration feature for this. All right, moving on to the next part. Now, because I'm in catalog, let's take a look at the user roles, which was about limiting the visibility of services that a subcatalog admin sees on the DWP. So let's see this guy, Bob, is an internal supplier admin. Essentially, what Bob is doing, Bob is managing a subcatalog, which is IT. Okay. It has 6 services, and there are 2 people, those who are actually assigned as an admin of for that. But in reality, in DWP, today, Bob will be able to see everything from the services standpoint, right? Let's see. Yeah, here. I'm logged in as Bob right now, and Bob can see all 93 services, which I said a lot of customers didn't like in multi MSP mode because they expect it to be governed by the entitlement. So a new setting, as I said, is introduced now, which is available to you here in Innovation Suite. So you go to DWP catalog and you have under entitlements, you have a new setting called info. So this will be off by default. You have to turn it on in order to consume this feature. So you just turn it on. It says enforce entitlement for subcatalog admins and just save it. It's going to take few minutes according to your cache refresh time. And then the entitlements are going to be in picture, and then it will be the catalogs that are irrelevant or are in excess for that person, for those subcatalog admins will be automatically hidden across the platform. You don't have to really do it on per subcatalog basis. It's one setting everywhere. Okay. The next thing that I want to show is about lookup using Innovation Suite process. So that's very, very interesting, and I personally like it a lot because many of you had really interacted with me on this. So let's take a look at a service first. It's an IT asset procurement service. So earlier, if you had to really integrate with a third-party system, you had to really write an external record definition, do the API integration, have the document data type created. Too much really. And then there were some restriction on the parameters that you could pass, the query parameters you could pass and get the data, right? And consider for each integration, if you had to really write one external record definition, you'll crowd your system. So we also didn't like it. It was just a matter of time. We wanted to give you a simpler solution, and here it is now. So this is a catalog item which is actually querying a third party system. What I'm doing here is I am mimicking a use case of a vendor who's my asset or hardware supplier. I'm going onto their website, trying to get the product inventory and trying to show it to the user what are the available models for each of those. Okay. Let's say this person wants to order mobile devices. Click on the mobile devices, and then 2 questions show up. First question is, what is the make of that device that you want to use or buy? I click on it, the answer is coming from third-party system. It's not in DWP. Okay. So if you see, if I don't select anything here, it's blank because the answer is actually dependent on the first question. So I select Apple, and then it basically gets me the result of all available devices in with that particular vendor. Now you'll ask me how can I be sure that it's actually coming from a third party system? I'll show you the workflow, but this is the API, REST API that I'm actually calling for that third party system behind the scene. It's giving me two options, Apple and Samsung. And then the next API that I'm actually calling is I'm passing the device model, a device make, manufacturer as an input, and I'm actually getting the results on what are the available device. So if I just say Samsung here, I have all Samsung S series show up here. So same way in the questionnaire, if I select this and I select Samsung and then I select, so Samsung is reflected. Okay, it's querying third-party system. So I think I have some example for computer system also. So let's see. Yeah, Apple and Dell. So in this case, I click on Dell and I have all the Dell accessories available on the vendor site, available that I can actually order, and I can just submit the request. Okay. Now it's pretty simple then. End user doesn't know even it's actually coming from the third party system, but as an administrator, your life is very easy now because you can easily integrate with third party system and can provide seamless experience to your end users. Okay. Now let's take a look at what is happening behind the scenes in this service. All right. So we go to workflow and you have a question, questionnaire. Sorry, my bad. I clicked on the workflow. I'll show you this some little later, but question. All right. So if a person is selecting on mobile device or computer, I just showed you that it's a nested question. Based on that, this will show up. But if you see, this is not your normal lookup process anymore. So you are doing lookup with a process, and the name of the process is device lookup, and I will show you how that works. Now you have a process variable that you can use. You can send the data. What value do you want to, from the process variable, where do you want to map it to? So the process that you're calling has an output variable called output where. The value of that name I'm showing in the display, I'm showing the name. In the value stored values, I can show the display name, or it can be something else, maybe like a code behind the scenes, a unique code for that device. It really depends on you how you want to get the data. And then when you are actually doing the input mapping, so from this questionnaire, you want to send something over, right? As you saw me sending, asset type, like something from here really to third party system. So I sent the asset type, which I selected a previous question to the URI, and I will show you what that URI is. So now we'll directly hop onto device lookup process, which is doing a third party lookup in the third party system. All right. So here we are. This is the device lookup workflow. So I have a object type because I'm trying to get the data from a JSON. And if you're not familiar with that, we have some documentation on what is this object type, data type really here. But essentially it gets you data in the array. You can parse it through a document data definition and can save it. Pretty simple. I will show it to you, but you need to go through documentation. It's not in the scope of this discussion today. But what am I doing really? I'm using a HTTP, a REST connector. And I have a REST connector already configured. I'm doing a HTTP GET method, and I'm calling this Polar device and the URI, okay, the value of the URI. So in my case, you just saw I'm saying this is the REST connector. I'm saying Polar device and mobile really is the URI. So it gave me response of Apple and Samsung. All right. And same way, it's basically parsing the body, parsing the JSON and getting the results back. And then I send it into a array of document data where I'm just parsing the value and sending the data. So in order for you to really consume this data, because it can be in any format from the third party system, you need to really define the document data type in your let me show it to you for simplicity. In DWP catalog, you can have documents created. Here I have computer manufacturer or computer device really. So I'll probably click on the manufacturer. I'm just saying I'm expecting data in this particular format. Okay. So you tell application how you want to receive the data, and then you basically map the values. Essentially, that's what we are doing here, right? And then output, as you can see, the output of this is actually going to the output variable, which I just showed you, and we're consuming it in the previous workflow. So that's how you basically call a third-party system and get the data back and write it back into that questionnaire. Okay, so everything is dynamic, nothing is really static. And I just showed you it's a web server where we have all of these settings really. Okay. So that's how you can really get it from a third-party system and show it here. Another thing to remember, it's a guardrail that we have provided is in the administration, you can override what is a timeout really, because third-party systems are unreliable. You don't know. You're going over HTTP through REST or HTTPS, and you don't know when they're going to be responding back to you, right? So you can define timeouts, and you can also define how much data, how many rows of data do you actually want to receive. If you, let's say you go for 100, like 1,000 or 5,000, it may not be ideal really to for your user to really select. So what you can do, we have given two options. One is how many seconds you should actually time out the lookup process. So you can override that according to your business needs. We are shipping something out of the box like 15 seconds. And then you also have max number of rows that you can accept from the third party lookup. So you don't have to really depend on the AR system max get list entries. You can define your own, and it can be lower, okay, but cannot be higher. That's something to remember. So you have to really set it up and can change that value and save it. It's going to automatically update or reflect everywhere, inside all your workflows which are using this type of question. All right. So far, so good. And if you have any questions, please put it on the chat and we'll be happy to answer. Now, you just saw me submitting the request for, let's go to a place where I have that request submitted. Yeah, procurement. Okay. I select information. Now, let me show you really the next topic, which is around the flex fields. Really, how can you map data to the flex fields? So if I come back to my original catalog item, I have a workflow, I have an element really, which is what essentially it's doing is mapping the data to the flex fields. And I told you in the beginning, many customers, it is a replacement for SR type fields in SRM. A lot of customers were using it for different kind of things that they would like to do. But now you have, for example, there are multiple ways of doing this. You can use the the build input set that you had for the workflow designing. And you can also use, you can basically set in the build input set, you can have flex char 1 and then the value flex char 2 and all those fields and their values. The other is a process called update record. This is from Innovation Suite. So you can do the update record with some data. So in this, my workflow is executing. I am looking at the service request record definition. I am using the record ID, and then I am basically mapping the values from the service into these fields. Okay. And I will, once the request is submitted, you will see this data inside the record definition, and you can use it for reporting purposes and other purposes, however you want to really use it. So let's take a look at what does that mean from the data's perspective, from the backend, how it will be stored. So in DWP catalog, you have service request record definition where all the service requests are stored. So let's take a look at the one I recently submitted. Okay, and you just see FlexCar fields now. The comparable fields for SR type fields that you had in SRM. I just mapped that data. So I had name as Liam. There was no value for department, so it didn't come. My email address, some timestamp that I actually mapped. You can do all of that really into all of these fields, right? Through simple application. So, and then you can use it for other things like approvals or to trigger some other workflow, whatever you guys were doing really with SRM. The only thing that you won't have right now is the um, SLM integration, which we are working on right now, but it's actually to bring you the feature parity. Now, one thing to remember, when you do the SRD migration through the SRD migration utility, these mappings will not come automatically. Again, I'm emphasizing that these mappings are not coming automatically. You have to really go into your catalog items after migration and write what I just showed you as the update record to update it, or build input sets to really, to fill those fields that you really need to submit in order to consume it. The migration utility is not going to handle this. It's out of scope of the migration utility because we don't know what those fields are, because those were a lot of those were really customized fields, sometimes written by filters behind the scenes or escalations. We don't know. So it's a manual process that you will have to do. We have the support for it, but you have to really use it the way you want to do it manually. All right. Moving on to the next feature about the migration utility. I am not going to go into really details of this, but what I'm going to show really is you had the SRD migration utility, right? And then those of you who have used it or have seen my previous webinars, there was this, when you do a pre-check, the service was shown as unsupported, and you click on it and it tells you the reason. In this case, it is telling me that it has embedded PDT and that's why it is unsupported. Moving forward, nothing changes for the person who is using this utility. This will say supported with caution, and then we will take care of migrating all your embedded PDTs as an individual processes and associate them directly to your main workflow behind the scenes. So no change in behavior for your analysts or developers. The only thing that they need to do is know that now it is supported, and they can use this migration utility to also migrate the embedded PDTs, right? And then basically once they are done, they just need to open the catalog workflow and just do the sanity check before making it online. Very simple. So I'll not go into deep detail of it. It's a topic in itself, but I've covered majority of it in the previous webinars. How do you do it? The only thing that you need to know is we have started supporting this. One thing, also important thing to know, that each PDT can create a different work order or change, incident, whatever really behind the scenes, right? How do you show that relationship in DWP catalog for the agents really? So what I really mean by that is, let's go back here in the reports. This may not be a good example, but let's see something where you have a fulfillment created. Yeah, here, right? So you have activities really. So incident was created. Let's say if there was an approval, there will be an entry for approval and timestamped when it was done or when it was modified. So we call it as the activities. Now each embedded PDT is a workflow in DWP catalog and can generate few things really. How do you really create a relationship? So in order to do that, you will have to toggle a setting, but that setting is only for this association, but not for migration. Migration you can easily do, but for association, to show this association in the catalog, in the reports here, you just got to turn on one more setting, and it's part of the documentation. If you can't remember it right now, that's absolutely okay. Enable new external activity discovery for process instance data. So this is opted out. You just got to go in and opt in automatically and save it. Um, it is important because then your associations will be maintained. So after you are done with migration of the embedded PDTs and everything, just go and turn it on and test it out in your system that you are able to see the data in the reports and that will basically give you the sense that you can now really make the relationship between each fulfillment that a external PDT is really creating. Okay, simple. It's not too difficult, and it is just for reporting purposes that you have the proper reporting here. All right. And now moving on to our last item, really, as you have seen, and I've shown it to you all, the portal, right? You can see a difference in the branding theme, the images, colors, and all everything. You can just go ahead and download it. We have the LOB sites available, that sample studio pages that you can easily download. Also for IT content pack, those who are using IT content pack can download it, and you will also see that IT content pack will have a new brand feeling, new colors, and all the icons are available as well. New icons are available with those catalog services, really. And then last but not least, really, there is a studio training. I just want to talk about this, and it's the link of that is available in the presentation. Our education team has created a dedicated training for Studio, how to use DWP Studio. It's a it's a not a single day training, it's a multi-day training. I highly encourage you explore that, and then because you really want to have meaningful information on your studio pages or pages that you offer to your lines of businesses, to your end users. I usually get into a call with a lot of customers where they still tell me that my landing page is too cluttered, there are too many catalog items that I still show to everyone. I need to know art of possible, and this training is art of possible, really, what you can do. So I highly encourage, take a look at it, see if you have you can sign up for this with your existing budget, or go for an additional um, you know approvals to get yourself trained on this. This is in detail training on Studio. All right, moving back to presentation again. So we are done with demos. There are resources that will be shared as part of the uh, this webinar. We'll get into Q&A now, and probably I'll look into the Q&A section.
So we have quite a few questions actually, and thanks for those that have stayed on a little bit longer. So I don't know if you can see, Deepak, there was a question around Helix GPT, federal moderate for IL4 and IL5. I don't know if that's a question that you can answer.
Yeah, Kaf, do you have information on that? I do not have that information handy right now with me. I will have to probably, because
It,
Helix GPT is a service in core, and there are several other dependencies in data centers, not
mm,
driven by me and Kaf completely. There is a separate product manager for that.
mm. I mean, Helix GPT is in no way different than the rest of Helix. So, because we offer certification of Helix, we will also offer certification of Helix GPT. I don't know the timeline or how far we are with 23304 or 23303, but we're definitely working on certifying Helix for this. One more thing to remember is that when you use Helix GPT, you need a large language model hosted somewhere. So if you host Helix in our certified data center, you still need to have a large language model that is in a certified data center. And if that is in Microsoft Azure data center, or if it is in another data center, we'll then decide whether that large language model is certified as well. If you have a plan to or wish to go into Helix GPT, I really encourage you to talk to your BMC account manager or CSS, what is it called, customer success managers, and ask them about that and help you find the best option here. We will certainly want to get customers onto Helix GPT, even in a certification data center, certified data center, but we are not the right people to answer exactly. So ask your local contact is my recommendation.
And obviously, Kath, if they don't know who that is, if you want to reach out, and you let me know which company you work for, we can go and find that for you, or I certainly can.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
I can take
Next,
the next one. Yeah,
yes,
so
please.
that's around branding of email notifications. Yes, Nicholas, that's covered, and you can actually do it, duplicate the templates per company basis, and can have different rules per company basis. So we have thought through that, and I've actually showed demo of that really, but I have not duplicated it, but you can just duplicate each template for each company. Part of it is covered in that webinar, so I highly recommend you go and take a look at it. So the next one is, would the delegates be able to have some set automatically as a collaborator, or would they have to need to be added with each service? That's a good question. So there is no default delegates. You have default collaborators, but no default delegates, right? We don't have that functionality, and we will not, because it gives you uh, a power really that can be easily misused, right? You don't know, you raise a request which is very confidential, and you have some confidential information, and you by mistake really did a collaboration, delegate with somebody else. So be very cautious when you enable functionalities like this. It should go in a very generic kind of catalog service. You can have your own collaborators, default collaborators, but not delegates. The next one from Richard is about the API calls. How do you handle security? So that's a very good question. Um, the REST API, connector, I did not cover it in this webinar, but we are supporting HTTPS now. So it will be available in the documentation in this release. So you will have HTTPS calls for the REST API connectors, and other connectors, out of the box connectors, if you have, the security is automatically accounted for, right? But more generic ones which can become more versatile and you can actually do multiple integrations are REST connectors, and we have introduced HTTPS, so you can have like like a SSL certificate installed on your server, and then use the SSL certificate really to query the third party system to get you the data. So that maintains the security. If there are other questions, I may not be able to answer, but you can just put it in the chat, Richard, and I'll try to have our product security group also review that and come back with a response.
Okay, we've got a few more questions. And also, if there is anyone here still that wants to ask questions live, please raise your hand or come off mute. So we had a couple more questions here. I think are these, in fact, it's Mark, so I don't know if Mark is still on here. He was asking about samples. Mark, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just bring in the context. Apologies, I may have missed your original question.
I'm here.
Hello.
Hello. No, I was just wondering if these are nice examples and use case touch points of how to do some of these things. And I was just wondering if they are going to be made available to us. So as we go back and try to implement them, if we have some reference points to actually see it in action, it always helps, because sometimes documentation can't always convey the full context of how to do things.
Yeah, makes sense. And then it's so what we are doing, if you've seen the trend that me and Kaf are actually taking in a lot of these webinars now, we are showing you the technical concepts behind the scenes. So my recommendation is, yes, documentation. What we are doing on the documentation also is we are splitting the documentation of the core product into a different area. But when it comes to these concepts and implementation, how can you do this really? We are asking them to write a blog with detailed steps. So you will start seeing link to external blog on communities where steps are given, what to follow and how to do it. I'll also see if they can attach like a zip file to it so that you can download and you can use it. I'll talk to them, the engineering team, about it. But my webinars and CAF's webinars, we try to go more in detail, and you can at least start referring these when you get the newer version and try to implement. But I'll keep that in consideration. That's a good point, Mark, to see if we can, along with those blocks, we can put the resources on too.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Mark.
just for your information, Mark, some of the catalog items that I keep showing here for approvals and things, they are already part of the IT content pack. So if you don't have it, just go ahead and ask BMC to install it. It has got that workflow best practice things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next question from Jill Ghosh. I think we are already working with them on this. Jill, I'm working with your team already. And yes, we are looking into it right now. Service for external portal. And
Okay.
multiple external portals also, it's something that we are looking in the future roadmap. Our primary target right now is to look at and provide you all a solution for surveys for the external users. But having multiple portals is definitely in the roadmap, and me and CAF are driving it right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks to Jill. Okay. And then there was a question for CAF. I don't know, CAF, if you can see that response back from Richard.
Yeah, it's about the APIs. I think Deepak answered already some of it and recommend that we look into documentation as well. It's not my special area, to be honest.
Yeah, let me read that. So let me rephrase the question from demo. Calling external API to populate the dropdown in DWP demo had no authentication. How would you handle the API calls to system? So yeah, absolutely. That's good. That's a good point. I just mentioned about HTTPS, and also if you have connectors that we are already providing you, then you can, if you identify there is one such connector, you can use that. Or on Innovation Suite, you can also call connectors where you can pass the information really for authentication, right? And get the information really. For example, Active Directory has got your Office 365 connector where you can have the token and the secret that you can put. So I definitely recommend explore this and see what are the improvements or enhancements you need. We really want you to use it first. I just gave one example. There could be 100 others where you need more support, and we are happy to really hear that. So looking forward to it, but definitely we have HTTPS um, support coming up in this release for REST connector.
Thanks, Deepak. We've got time for just the last few questions. There was another one that says, do we have customers who have implemented Helix Chat GPT in Helix on-prem instance?
We are working with a few right now for on-prem. Most of the customers are in SaaS. It is I would say, no big difference in terms of Helix, because you have Helix on-prem, but you still need a large language model, and that is mostly run in a cloud data center, as you know right now. You can download and run local models like Llama 3.1, which we have tested not to run in our own data center, but we have it running in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, for example, and it works pretty well. We have also tested in the Google Cloud Data Center, and you can use that. So if you want to run completely on-prem, we really want to work with you. If you have a case where you want to try that out, we really want to do that together. We are looking for design partners. We have a couple of other customers asking about this, and we really want to support you on that as much as we can. But I think every customer has a little bit of different approach to on-prem. Some will actually use the large language models in Azure or in Google or in AWS or wherever you run it, but others want it really on-prem, and it's a little bit different. But Helix GPT itself, is pretty open to what models we connect to. So as long as the API you have in an on-prem installation matches what OpenAI or one of the big vendors are doing, we should be able to test that out together.